the witnesses for being here. I was born in Philadelphia. My father, his entire family's from Philadelphia, and so every time I come back, it has a special place in my heart. And I do believe that every single one of you here wants Philadelphia to be the best that it possibly can be. And so I'm going to focus my questions on things that might help prevent violent crimes from occurring. I represent Wake County, North Carolina, and this is a place that's home to both metropolitan centers like downtown Raleigh and smaller, much more rural towns. Yet each part of my district represents the challenges that we've heard today, though not with our district attorney. But what we've seen is that violence isn't segregated to large cities or democratic areas. Today we have violence because it's easier than ever to access a firearm and to access it illegally. I call my sheriff. I only have one sheriff because I only represent one county, but I have 10 chiefs of police. I call them every 4 to 6 weeks just to check in. The two things they tell me every single time: number one, too much access to illegal firearms. It threatens the communities and it threatens their own officers. The second thing is how difficult it is to recruit officers. It's easier in some of the small towns because the cost of living is lower and you just know everybody. But particularly in Raleigh, it's very difficult to recruit officers. And so I've been working on that, in particular trying to recruit all different kinds of officers and more female officers, because they tend to be better at some of the de-escalation that we need to see when they confront the community. But I want to share a recent example from a suburban neighborhood in my district, Hedingham. In October of 2022, Hedingham experienced a mass shooting. The shooter was a 15-year-old who took a firearm that he used to kill 5 people from his family home, and it was left unsecured. In North Carolina, guns are now the leading cause of injury or death for children, surpassing car accidents. And one of the reasons for this tragedy is the lack of safe storage. Same all across the country. 42% of the households in my state own firearms, legally own firearms. But half of those households do not have safe storage. Nationally, 70% of school shootings are committed by children who have had unsecured guns in their home. 75% of unintentional shootings of children are committed with unsecured guns, and 80% of firearm suicides by children involve family weapons. In addition, thousands of unsecured guns are reported stolen in North Carolina and across the country, threatening not only their families, but the communities where these guns end up proliferating. My first question is for Dr. Abaya. How does safe storage factor into community violence intervention programs?
Thank you for that question. So safe storage is incredibly important in any community violence intervention structure or ecosystem. Specifically, when it comes to children, we know that there's no circumstance under which a child should have access to a gun. So safe storage is a kind of fundamental component of anticipatory guidance for pediatricians who are engaging with children. There's great evidence that safe storage prevents accidental injuries, as you identified, suicides. And I think that there is untapped promise for community violence, the unique nature of interpersonal violence that we see on the streets. Because as you mentioned, unsecured guns can end up causing violence in a myriad of ways. Safe storage has been shown to be most impactful if you link education with device provision. And so programs like the one at CHOP that help families by both giving them the information they need to keep their children safe and providing them information about a specific device have been shown to be most effective. And there's also evidence that families are receptive to this messaging, especially when it comes from trusted voices like their primary care provider. So there's a lot of potential to increase safe storage, specifically in protecting children.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the Fitzgeralds a question. And I am so devastated by the story of what happened to your son. And I hope that you get the justice that you're seeking. But I want to talk about safe storage in that context because, as Mr. Nadler described, the person who killed your son in such a heinous, violent, and cruel way had known mental health problems, well, at least from the record, it seemed like, but also had a family that allowed him to have access to these guns. And so we can let you talk about his mental health problems, but his family let him have access to these guns when he was under the age of 21. Do you think that safe storage or some way of dealing with that could have been helpful in your situation?
So I'll answer that question. Yes, I do believe his family gave him access to guns. As far as the mental health, I have to say that during his preliminary, he said that he did not have any mental health history. So I don't know where that statement is coming from. But yes, I do feel that he had access to guns, and I do feel that his family gave him that access to them. He was underage. He was under the age to legally have a gun. And so, yes, I don't believe they locked him up. I believe they shot on their property. I believe he target shot. And, yes, he has pictures on the Internet with all kinds of guns.
Okay, thank you very much. And, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a UC.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to put in a Pew Trust report